Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. Now, our guest for this week's show is developer and short-term housing expert, Alex Jarbo. Now, Alex is the founder and CEO of Sargon Investments, which is a short-term rental resort development firm. Alex has an MBA with a concentration in real estate development, is a former Marine and a regular contributor to some of the world's top real estate investing podcasts, and is also the host of the YouTube channel Alex Builds, where he teaches how to build and manage short-term rentals. And so, guys, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Alex Jarbo to the show. Alex, how you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on, man.
Excited to have you here. Excited to, again, talk about short-term rentals. It's an interesting asset class because 10 years ago, it didn't really have an identity. Now it does. Right. And it's a very big identity. And I feel like it's grown exponentially, especially over the last couple of years. I feel like COVID gave it some rocket fuel and it's absolutely booming. So, I guess first and foremost, Alex, before we dive into, the nitty gritty, I gave you such a brief introduction there, brief bio. So maybe take a few moments for folks that don't know you, aren't familiar with you and your background. Take a few moments to tell us a little more about yourself, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like you said, I started, I originally was in the Marine Corps. My last year of the Marine Corps, I decided I didn't want to re-enlist. I was stationed in Washington, D.C. And so my last year, I just started picking up a lot of different, it wasn't just real estate books. Real estate books was part of it, but general business books, stock books. I didn't know what I wanted to get into. I just knew that I wanted to get into some sort of business. So while I was still in, I joined a flipping mentorship, just flipping single family houses. And I was on a group coaching call, and the owner of that flipping mentorship had mentioned that this was back in 2015, 16, that all of his long-term wealth was tied into short-term rentals. So my ears sort of perked up a little bit when I heard that. And I got him on a one-on-one call, and I was like, hey, like after the Marine Corps, like I'm really open to moving anywhere. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, but I'm like, I'm really open to moving anywhere. So he had shown me like a couple vacation rental markets even back then, and I landed on Asheville just because of how beautiful it was. So the day that I got out of the military, I drove with all my stuff directly to here. I had an apartment lined up, and then I got my broker's license and just started looking for a vacation rental for myself. And at that time, everything was either way out of my price range or it was in my price range. It just wouldn't have done well as a short-term rental, maybe as even a long-term rental. So I did the broker thing for about a year and a half too. And I got some rental arbitrage units on the vacation rental side during that time, but I was still looking for something for myself. And I couldn't find anything. So my very first real estate project, my very first real estate investment that I'd owned myself was a ground up construction, 800 square foot A-frame. So dove straight into it, and one turned into two really quickly, two turned into four. Brought on some investor capital from some friends. About a year or two after that, when we built out four other ones, teamed up with a fund to do a larger deal, and now we're doing a big capital raise. So like we're either managing, developing, or purchasing, because we purchase also about $30 million in vacation rentals just in this market alone.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate that, and I'm going to back up a little bit. So just give us some context of the time frame that we're talking about here. When did you move to Asheville?
Yeah, early 2017. So it's been 6 years or over 6 years now. Yeah.
Okay, got it. You mentioned you did the broker thing for like a year and a half, and then in between that time frame, you mentioned that you managed to create some arbitrage between maybe a rental and turning it into vacation rental. What do you mean by that, and what did that look like?
Yeah, so I joined, it's funny because I coach for them 1 hour a week now, but I originally purchased a course called B&B Formula, and it's run by Brian Page, and all they teach is like subleasing properties from long-term rental to vacation rental. So, I mean, at that time in this market, that was incredibly lucrative. It was also a very quick way to get into vacation rentals. And then that allowed me some flexibility in getting into my first property with just the money that was coming off from the first three alone.
So in that scenario, pretty much all you have to come up with then would be like the first month's rent deposit and then the furnishings, correct?
Yeah, that's a huge, to this day, it's a huge way to get into vacation rentals. I mean, it's the easiest way, but like I would say most of my peers that have built larger vacation rental companies all started rental arbitrage and started, and I would say like a lot of my friends say that manage, say, like 300 listings, I would say half of them are like rental arbitrage units. So
Really?
it's a big part. Like you had mentioned bigger pockets. I write for them about like once a month. I send them an article, and most of the students, or I say call them students, most of the people in bigger pockets are on the rental arbitrage tract over just purchasing properties.
Well, I think it's a low barrier to entry, right? I mean, you
Right.
don't need a ton of capital to get involved in it. I would be interesting to understand what the pitch is to a to the landlord, the person that owns the property, that's leasing it out. Obviously, in their mind, probably initially, like they're looking for a long term, annual type renter, and the approach that you're presenting them is pretty much the opposite of what they had
Yeah,
in their
yeah.
mind. And I'm sure there's a lot of initial concerns that come up as far as wear and tear, ongoing maintenance,
Yep.
people throwing parties in my house and trashing it, those types of things. So, but
Yep.
obviously it works. It sounds as though like this isn't just a strategy that you've utilized, but hundreds of others have utilized successfully across the board. So, with that, I would love to get a better understanding of, kind of the progressive stages that you took to ultimately decide on developing your first property. I know you said a lot of things were out of your price range, or it just didn't make sense economically, to turn into short-term rentals. And so you decided to basically develop one from the ground up. So tell us about kind of just getting to that decision point.
Yeah, I mean, I had been pre-qualified for a second home construction loan, and through the lender that I was working with, it was I was just renting at the time, and it was just 10% down, and they had approved me for 180,000 total, which I couldn't get anything in this market at that price range. So we ended up building with they were able to tie in the acquisition of the land and also closing costs. So with the acquisition of the land, the build, and I came up with the furnishings myself. I was probably in that project with holding costs about a little over 40,000, and that property netted us after debt service 40,000 in that first year, and last year it netted us 54,000. Granted, those numbers are prior to COVID. I would probably tack anywhere between 30 to 40% with construction costs and everything else to those numbers, but still, I mean, technically it's an infinite return because we got our money back the first year
Mm-hmm.
of managing that property. And yeah, that's that one definitely was like the foundation of one, learning how to manage properties like on a long-term basis, but just the foundation on understanding what makes a good real estate deal that has slowly snowballed into what we're working on now.
Got it. And have you noticed? I know that obviously, given the construction cost and cost of materials, since COVID have gone up significantly. Let's just use 30% as the baseline there. Have you equally noticed that the overall revenues and overall demand have increased and have stayed at that higher level to get you to necessarily a net zero of gain loss? I mean, or where does that lie at present time today? Obviously, we're in a post-COVID world. I know
Yeah,
that the demand for short-term housing in certain markets has softened a little bit. There's
absolutely.
also been a lot of saturation in certain areas. It seemed like everyone and their brother bought short-term rentals during COVID
During
and
yeah,
decided to
21,
get in
yeah,
that game.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
everyone was at home, like had saw a couple of influencers showing them their numbers,
that's
and
it.
then it's like, boom, I'm gonna go buy one now. Yeah, no, absolutely. The biggest thing, and again, I'm not telling all the listeners here to just go out and dive headfirst into development. That's not the whole point of this. Is that like with development, you have complete control over your floor plan. Like you optimize
Mhm.
every single square foot. Where, I mean, we have properties that we purchased. Like the first one that comes to mind that I always use an example of, we have a 3,500 square foot log cabin that can sleep like 16 people, but that property has massive bedrooms. That property would do just as equally well if all the bedrooms were half the size, and there's 5 bedrooms. So there's stuff like that. It's like when you're developing an
Yeah.
800 square foot A-frame, but there's not one, or A-frame, any type of property, say it's 800 square foot. There's not one wasted square foot in that when it comes to and I mean, just adding 100 or 200 square foot to a property significantly increases the development cost. So
Yeah.
I've always said something making it like some sort of uniqueness, and that doesn't mean like themed in any way. It's just something that would be social media friendly, that a guest would be proud to put on their social media, where the property becomes an experience in itself outside of the city that the guest is visiting, which is really important for low season. And then when it comes to the market stuff, I've been saying this on the Bigger Pockets articles for the last 6 months, that there's definitely been a shift. Like you said, a whole bunch of people got into vacation rentals when interest rates were crazy low and nobody, like everyone was at home, and they're like, I can go purchase this property at 2 to 3% interest rate, and just throw it on Airbnb. And according to this person somewhere that I heard either through a friend or through social media, is going to do really well. And I think gone are those days that I hate it when I talk to someone and they're like, I'm like, oh, what business are you in? Or what type of real estate are you in? If we're at a real estate conference and they're like, I'm in Airbnbs. That's the wrong answer. What I say is I'm either in vacation rentals, short-term rentals, or what I started saying in the last 6 months is I'm in hospitality. And
There you go.
that's the shift that has happened in the last 6 months, is that if you look at Marriott, if you look at booking.com, if you look at Expedia, they all accept vacation rentals now. Even Google Travel, as of like 3-4 months ago, like that's a new thing with Google allowing listings on their properties or on their search algorithm.
Mm.
Like last year, when you were looking for a vacation rental in Asheville, it would just show you Airbnbs. And now it's completely flipped, where they're showing properties that are listed on their own travel platform, which a lot of people don't know about. So that's what I said. Like there has definitely been a dip because of the borders reopening and people like who were cooped up in the United States that wanted to travel internationally. There has been a dip, but the way we've sort of gotten out of that is to treat it like a business. Obviously, to go completely multi-platform, going across 7-8 different channels. Expedia's 10-15 channels in itself under that umbrella, if you can get your property there. And then we also do some sort of email capture in each one of our properties. We have a device called StayFi, which it's a little disc that plugs into the back of a router, and it creates a landing page for your internet. So imagine you're going to Starbucks, you're going to the airport,
Mhm.
you have to put your email address in to get access to the internet. Same idea there. That way, like I said, we have a property that sleeps 16. We're not just getting the person that's just booking like their email address. We're getting everyone's contact info that's in the property. That way we can capture their contact info and then remarket to them through our own direct booking website. And that's where the business, like I said, is going, because it's almost gone full circle. Like back in the day before Airbnb, VRBO, you had to pick up a phone to book a vacation rental. Now it's so that you're booking direct that way. Now it's just done through direct booking channels. So like I said, it's gone full circle. So that's what I have to say about it. There has been, for sure, there's been a dip in demand, but that's how we've been able to counter it.
Got it. No, I love that. And let's talk about the dip in demand, but more as relates to saturation in certain markets. And it doesn't, we don't necessarily, whatever market you choose the market, because I know that there's a number of markets that are oversaturated. I mean, do you foresee, and maybe it's already happening, I don't necessarily pay attention to this vertical, but are there signs of distress from an owner's perspective? Again, those that got in with the allure of having this awesome vacation rental, money was really cheap. It was in abundance, right? So you could go anywhere, get a loan very quickly, very easily. Again, they saw a YouTube video or someone on Instagram, posting the numbers on their vacation rental, and so they decided to go buy one themselves. It's a set it and forget it. I'm going to put it with the management company, and this thing's just going to print money. Is there distress in the market today that you see as a result of that individual, to where maybe it's not meeting their expectations? They're not necessarily maybe covering their monthly nut on their payments, what have you, after all the expenses, and maybe are looking to offload at a discount to get out of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm seeing that with like just I'm still a licensed real estate agent, so I just set an autoresponder for myself just to see what hits the market every single day. And I'm definitely seeing properties that I can guess were vacation rentals, hit the market every single day, and
Mm-hmm.
price drops and everything like that. That wasn't a thing a year ago, a year and a half ago. And it's really interesting because I hate putting blanket statements even on a market, because everything
Yeah.
is situation dependent. You don't know if that person got that 2.5% interest rate at an adjustable rate mortgage, where
Right.
it's both the rate has tripled and also like demand has gone down. I compare it to, usually only hear about the people that are struggling. You don't, like, if I got on a podcast or like anywhere and was like, I'm killing it right now, like I'm doing this and this compared to this person who's struggling, it's gonna look bad. So I have mentors. I was way too young to invest in 2006, 7, 8, 9, but I have mentors that held property during that time, and they came out of it, did really well, where they actually underwrote the properties properly in 2005 and 6. And I compare that to now, where people got into single family houses or rentals or real estate or whatever to 2004, 5, 6, didn't really underwrite the property, just banked on the appreciation, and then got in trouble like in 2007, 8, 9, 10. And I compare that to vacation rentals. It's not like an apples to apples where that caused a real estate crash. I've seen some stuff on social media saying the Airbnb thing is going to cause a crash, which I don't believe in any means. But that it's usually those, like we said, those people that just purchased a random property, threw it on Airbnb. Those are the people that are struggling for sure. Even if they didn't put it with a property manager, that is another strategy. If you are struggling with your properties, to find a good local property manager that understands this business model that we're talking about multi-platforms, generating a list, having their own direct booking site. Those managers are doing good, like better than the people that I just took like a double wide and just put it onto like Airbnb and whatnot. Yeah.
What do you think?
No offense to anyone who's listening.
Yeah. No. So I saw an article come out within the last couple of weeks about some of the regulatory changes that are being made in New York City as it relates to short-term rentals.
That's huge.
That is huge. Yeah. I mean, is that a come to Jesus moment for those that they don't end up getting the light, that don't qualify for XYZ reason and now get kicked out of the system? I think Airbnb tried to fight it and they lost. And so those people are kind of on their own island at this point in time.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
That is pretty insane. I mean, it happened in Hawaii last year too, with the entire state like banning short-term rentals, I think, or maybe some like the larger cities banned it. I know it happened around, like all the bannings happened around the same time. So I got into vacation rentals out of necessity. I could only afford what was on the outskirts of the city, like not necessarily downtown. And that's the trend right now, is in like the rural properties are doing better than the downtown, like metro markets. And I've always said that I think investing in a rural property is a safer bet than investing in a metro market, especially after COVID. Like you saw record numbers for like national parks, national forests, investing in markets that are close to that. I said always like to invest in markets that historically were vacation rentals prior to Airbnb and like VRBO, because a lot of times I've seen HOA stuff that protects short-term rentals, because a lot of times I tell students that I coach that like don't invest in HOAs. But like if you're in one of these markets, we were just talking about mountain markets. I love investing in mountain markets that historically are not like ski resorts, because the seasonality tends to be a little bit less, where nothing gets more picturesque than a cabin in the woods in the winter, where the property itself draws the guest, and then during the summer it's like the city that's drawing the guest.
No, all great points there. No, it's interesting. I think another one that came to mind, speaking of like some news articles I've seen over time, or maybe someone mentions to me, I think it happened last year, was in Las Vegas, the ban on short-term rentals in Las Vegas. And I think I'm going to botch all these numbers here, but I believe like they've issued a certain number of licenses, short-term rental licenses, but there's like, 3 times the amount of illegally operating short-term rentals, but they didn't have the enforcement. They don't have the staffing to actually enforce all those illegally run short-term rentals. But in and if they ever do, what happens, right? Like when they start shutting things down.
Here's another thing, and this is not for the beginner by any means, but I mean, just in 6 years, we've been able to build this pretty aggressive like vacation rental portfolio, or say aggressively grew this vacation rental portfolio. Is when you start getting into like every city and county is going to be different. In my county, it's over 10. If you're over 10, you're applying for like a hotel permit, even if they're like scattered throughout, like if it's cabins like scattered throughout like say 15, 20 acres. That, like you've seen, I think Sonder did it, and a couple other smaller companies that aren't branded did it, where they took like multifamily properties, threw a hotel permit on it, and then just threw them up on the OTAs like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. That's how I've seen some of my peers get around the short-term rental laws. It's like, hey, this isn't necessarily a vacation rental. If the city's going to approve this hotel permit for this multifamily building, like more than like that's how you protect yourself there. Again, this is for the larger stuff. But that's what we're working on now, is just like the community that we're purchasing in the next couple of weeks here. It has indefinite conditional use zoning from the city. Like that permit can never be taken away, and if they tried to take it away, it'd be a fight. So that's another way to get around it, but it's for some of the larger stuff.
Got it. Let's talk about this project that you're working on. It sounded like it was very intriguing. We only briefly touched on it before we started recording here. I know it's a fairly large project, and would love to get a better understanding what it is, what makes it unique, and what really sets it apart from the competition.
Yeah, it's a treehouse community, which
Mm.
the founder, I feel like I've been dogging Airbnb this entire podcast episode, but the founder of Airbnb had said a couple of years ago that the best thing to put on the short-term rental sites is a treehouse. But it's a treehouse community. There's 7 there. The current owners live right next to the property. They're building out the other 13. It's 20 with a wedding pavilion. We actually own a wedding venue here in the market that we just learned that entire business model this year. But it's 17 acres total. It's in a gated community in an HOA. It's built into the HOA,
Wow.
like I said earlier. Yeah. So the owners up there had developed, there's like 45 other luxury single family houses up there. Beautiful, almost 360 mountain views. And they started building that treehouse community before they had sold lots. So that like the owner was very specific in putting that the treehouse community in the bylaws to make sure that it can never be voted out. But it's in a gated community, so the guests I think about the entire guest experience, like the drive up to the property, the drive down for the property outside of just the property they're staying at. So like a guest is putting in a gate code to go into a gated community to get into these very unique tree houses. They're anywhere between 400 to 800 square foot. I think the biggest one is like 780. But the average daily rates are just out of this world compared to just even the unique short-term rentals that we have that we've built. Yeah.
Very interesting. So are these, it's a silly question, but are all
Yeah.
the tree houses going to be in all real trees? Or is it?
Yeah. So one of them is legitimate. The very first one is legitimately pinned to the side of a tree. The other ones
Okay.
have trees around them, but just to get proper certificate of occupancies and
Gotcha.
to properly insure them. Imagine a house on the beach, like in Florida, except it's in the trees. Like their house is on stilts, practically. Not practically, that's what they are. But
I gotcha.
one thing that we've learned about, like, because we've developed properties like that too, houses on stilts, is like the foundation plan on how those stilts look is just as important to the look of the actual property itself. So I mean, I'll be talking about the website here in a second because we built out an entire website just for this property itself. But like I said before we started, it's gotten like over 40 or 50 million views on social media across TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. That plays into an entire other strategy that we have built into our pro forma, which is social media marketing. So bringing in these, I hate to use the word influencer because it's gotten such a bad rap the last like 3-4 years, but so these travel influencers that have followings that fit our guest criteria or like our guest avatar, coming in, giving them a couple nights stay, them shooting some content for us, and then reposting it on both their social media and our social media, and then driving all that traffic directly towards our direct booking site. That's the strategy for this property specifically with how picturesque it is. The returns also, like we're doing a raise for this property, the returns for this property are ridiculous. It's 19% annual cash on cash to the investors. We're giving the entire tax benefit to our investors, and then it's close to a 3x equity multiple. It's like 2.99.
How long do you anticipate it's going to take you to build out the project?
So they're all of 8 out of the 13 are dried in right now, and they're going to be done by the end of November this year. And then the rest of them are already framed in with the foundations in place. I'm up there every other day right now. They'll be done by the end of May, early June of next year.
And how large are these tree houses? Are they 1-bedroom units, studios?
Yeah, 1 to 2 bedroom units. Some of them are studios, but the average daily rates, and I mean, you guys can, whoever looks up this property can see them on Airbnb. The rates they command are ridiculous. It's anywhere between $400 to $800 a night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite impressive. And so, just in proximity to downtown Asheville, I mean, how far of a drive?
It's 3 exits, so it's 3 exits away.
Okay,
yeah, so it's about 8 to 9 minutes. It's crazy because like when we did a massive photo shoot up there, like a video shoot for our investors for our investor video for 4 days. And we lived up there for 4 days, and we just got CVS, we got groceries, we got food, Uber Eats, DoorDash, like directly to the properties, which is really cool. Same thing with like local restaurants that were on the local like delivery apps, like we were able to get directly up there.
What additional amenities need to be tied into this higher end type of short-term rental or vacation rental? I mean, in addition to just having a cool experience, what else do people expect?
With the four, I've been up there, like I've stayed in every single one of the units, but with the 4 straight days that we were up there, I saw that most people didn't leave. When they were up there, they didn't leave the property. Like you didn't see the cars leave.
Hmm.
The view is probably the biggest amenity. Like when you think of like almost like a 360 mountain view, both sunrise and sunset, you can see both from the property for every single one of the properties. Um, that's one. The uniqueness plays into the factor of like being more luxury, even though it's a smaller unit, and then just small little welcome basket amenities. And there's hiking trails on the property. You can't really put. I wanted to put disc golf stuff on there, but there's a highway like down there, so that would have been nuts. But the two biggest things is just the uniqueness of these properties. And then the beautiful mountain views with it being, you can't do short-term rentals in Asheville. Like Asheville proper does not allow short-term rentals,
Really?
even no permits
Okay.
whatsoever. You can't even get a permit issued.
Wow.
So like it's a very unique situation to be that close to the city with those type of mountain views. That like a lot of the other rentals don't have those types of amenities. And we're going to be adding stuff when we take over the properties, things like just staying at like say Four Seasons, like you get a branded robe and slippers and stuff like
Hmm.
that, just to tie everything together, and like just free items like foods, water bottles, all that stuff that honestly I saw go. My wife and I try to stay as in as many unique short-term rentals when we travel. A lot of those amenities went away during COVID because it got so expensive.
Right.
Um, so like I said, the uniqueness factor and the mountain views, that's like the biggest things to what causes those high rents, and then also the hiking trails on the property and all of like the little details inside of the
Yeah. No,
properties, just how they're designed.
yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, and just speaking to like the small little value add propositions that you provide for the guests, you compare it to like Four Seasons, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's the same. I mean, like you're talking about if you're commanding $400 to $800 a night. I mean, like you're dealing with the same or very similar demographic. So, they come to expect those types of things, and I mean, they want the
Helping
experience.
helping them plan it, no matter if you're commanding $90 a night or that 800 or whatever the number is. Um, Helping them plan their trip through like a digital guidebook or something, like, hey, here's a list of discount codes for all the local
Hmm.
things to do here with ticket. That goes a long way, and that can just be put in your automated messaging to the guest. When my wife and I had stayed in Tulum Beach, Mexico, a couple of years back for our anniversary, and before we even got to the resort, like they had planned our entire trip for us. They're like, here, like you're here for 5 days. Here's 5 days worth of stuff to do, and then this is how to plan it. Like if you were to go day by day on these on this itinerary, like this is your trip. You can pick, you can mix and match. That's what we do for our guests. We try to do like a 2 day, a 4 day, and like a week if they're staying a week, and then just give them discount codes. And again, that's completely free to do through a digital guidebook.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love every bit of that. Switching gears a little bit here, Alex, before we wrap it up here for the day, would love to get an understanding of exactly how you and your group are just navigating some of the volatility capital markets. I mean, debt's just there's so much uncertainty around the debt markets. I know you guys are in the middle of a raise right now, but just as it relates to looking at maybe not even the project you're working on, but just even looking at new opportunities again with the uncertainty that's in the capital marketplace. How are you guys navigating that?
Yeah, so when we tried to obviously check every single box. The uniqueness of these properties, I've realized the last 6 months of raising is that it's a double-edged sword. It's a really cool. It's what it plays into the average daily rates. But if I'm talking to like multifamily investors, self-storage, say mobile home parks, it's a little bit of a harder jump to make from, hey, this is a $20 million asset. It's only 20 units, but it's a hospitality asset. So I've tried to check as many boxes as we can with this current one. The biggest thing is, you just said, like with interest rates and the volatility, is we don't there's no bank involved in this deal. The owners are carrying a 60% note, and then we're bringing the rest to the table. So
Mm-hmm.
that checks a big box. The other volatility, like we said, is the permitting side of it. Of cities just decided to wake up one day and just ban short-term rentals. There's indefinite conditional use zoning built into this property. So that you can't get rid of that. And then when it comes to the future stuff, I'm not right now, with the amount of development and especially this large purchase, we're not going to be purchasing anything probably for the next at least 8 months to a year until this property
Mm-hmm.
is everything is built and fully stabilized. But going forward, if 20 units is probably the smallest I'll ever do again. For a raise. I mean, 20 is pretty small for how big of a raise this is. I'd like to do 40 to 60 unit developments, and there's some beautiful like international resorts that have stuck to that micro resort model. Tulum Beach is a very good example. All the resorts in Tulum Beach are anywhere between 20 to 50 units tops. But they command the, like, there's a resort community in there called Azulik, and they bring it anywhere between $500 to $1,000 a night, and these units don't even have AC in them. It's just the way that they're built, and the uniqueness factor lends to those higher average daily rates. So if I were to build a property today in this market with this interest rate environment, I would definitely be looking at a very unique concept that people would be proud to put on their social media. Because people forget, like, yeah, we're bringing in social media influencers to market these properties for us. But Mark Simpson from Boostly, who builds direct booking websites, had said it best to me, which was, every single one of your guests is an influencer because they have their own following, right? So it's like, if they're putting it on social media and they're tagging your channel, they're advertising your property. So I hate continuing to use the example of the uniqueness factor because it's not quantifiable. But the more unique you can make a property with at the same time making it livable and comfortable, that's just going to lend to your average daily rate, which is going to help with, even if we were borrowing at 10 or 11%, like, it's possible to still make the numbers work with these types of properties. We've underwritten this property when we take out this owner financing that we have, and the numbers still stand on their 2 feet with today's interest rates.
That's great. That's great. And good job on negotiating the owner financing piece of it. That makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you found that some of the banks have actually backed away from lending at this point in time, at least in the short-term rental space? Like some of the more, some of the go-to lenders maybe over the last couple of years have kind of like stepped back, pencils down for this period of time.
It's difficult to do right now. I know I'll plug a couple of them. They're phenomenal. Aloha Capital, Host Financial. Those are probably the two biggest ones. Center Street Lending, and then I have a loan with Vizio Lending. Those are the main players in the vacation rental space outside of say like just a local credit union. The 20 unit is weird. Same thing with 20 million. That's like too big for those lenders, but too small for some of the larger players. But yeah, the reason why we started negotiating this deal back in February. By the time we got it under contract, things were in full swing with interest rates going up every other week, or like say every 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, there were some lenders that were saying like 50% recourse debt was not even a thought, say like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So we tried to go the lending route first before we asked for the owner financing, and there for sure has been a back off for some of these larger hospitality deals. But you can still get the 4 lenders that I mentioned. You can get anywhere between 1 to 4 units as long as the numbers pencil out. They're going to be underwriting it themselves too. Most of the time, they're going to be underwriting it better than what you're going to be doing. And if they approve it and they're comfortable at their 9-10% interest rates, then I mean, it's like the whole saying, like, marry the property, or what is it? Marry the property, date the interest rate or something. I forgot what it is. But it's like, if you can make what I've been saying is, if you can make the property work at today's interest rates, when it comes time to refinance, they're never going to be back to the 3%, 2%. But if you can make the property work at a 10% interest rate, it's going to work at a 5 or 6% interest rate.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So just curious as to what the takeout, I don't, the terms of your owner financing, like what is the takeout? Does that have to be done in the next 36 months, or do you guys have a little bit longer of a runway? Okay.
Yeah,
so you got some time to figure that one out, but I guess I know that
principal and interest as well. So like we are paying down the loans slightly,
right. And no one knows what the world looks like in 5 years, but generally speaking, who is the ideal lender in 5 years on that takeout financing when that time comes? Is that just a local credit union, or, and like you said, it's kind of like this weird middle space, how large it is?
Definitely not a local credit union. That's one thing that I'm figuring out right now. It's like right now the goal is just to raise the money and to get it to closing,
get the deal done.
And like literally the first month, once we get our arms wrapped around it, I'm looking for, we got 5 years, I'm looking for a lender right off the bat. Where I'm thinking it's going to come from is there are conferences out there that that cater to these like micro resorts, and that's where I think I'm going to be able to find a lender. Or if a family office wants to step in and do the takeout, that's another option too. The numbers work either way. But I mean, like I said, we've underwritten this property if a lender did step in. And they're becoming more comfortable with asset classes like this. First Citizens Bank is a good, First Citizens Bank is a good example of that. I've spoken to one of their directors that they've started lending on stuff like this, like in like Blue Ridge, Georgia and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, hopefully, when the time comes 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you'll have a great track record to go along with the storyline, and let the numbers in the property speak for itself. Right.
Like I said, when I first started, there were no lenders on vacation rentals. We got a second home loan. That's what we counted. So it's like, and cut to now, I feel like there's an infinite amount, not an infinite amount, but like local credit unions, like we have a couple loans with them. And then all the other lenders that have popped up for vacation rentals. I'm not going to say the ones that I haven't used yet. But I have a feeling that's where that's going to go in the next, say, like 2 to 4 years, let alone 5 years.
I don't disagree. I mean, gosh, like I told you, we're in the manufactured housing space. We started buying, communities 11 or 12 years ago. And for the first 3 or 4 years, I had deals fall apart. I would bang my head against the wall and talk to every different bank in the local marketplace. I'd spread
Absolutely.
out, on a regional basis, and I couldn't get anyone to understand. They might have known the asset class, but they didn't understand the business model, and they never lent on it. Now, the script is completely flipped to the other direction. I mean, banks are like bending over backwards. Yeah. Absolutely, bending over backwards to write loans on manufactured housing communities. But it was just a slog and incredibly challenging. Like we had great deals that fell apart because we couldn't get debt put in place. And it's just not the
I've tried to like not lie, but try to disguise the numbers. Like I'll try to show the numbers before the property and be like, these are the numbers.
Oh, that's funny.
And then it's like they'll see the property and they're like, no, we don't lend on that. I'm like, yeah, but the numbers work. The numbers are
that's right.
Way more than exactly.
That's right. Well, Alex, this has been a lot of fun, my friend. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all your insights and knowledge about the vacation rental business. And for those that I know, you got a YouTube channel, you got other platforms as well in the social world. So for those that want to reach out to you, learn more about you and what it is you do, where's the best place to track you down?
Quickest way is LinkedIn, just Alex Jarbo. And then if you guys are interested in this property, which is along the lines of everything else that we work on and build and manage, that's openatlas.investments. And I'm sure we'll put in the show notes somewhere. So openatlas.investments, built an entire website just for this property. Investor videos on there as well. And if you guys are looking to invest in that property, it's just, we're just taking it's 506C. So we're just taking accredited right now, or not right now. It's just accredited. But if you guys are interested in any other stuff, like I said, I write for Bigger Pockets, and the YouTube channel as well. If you guys are just looking to dip your toes in or just start with like 1 or 2 properties.
Awesome. Good deal, Alex. Well, I appreciate you coming on, my friend. It's been a pleasure having you.
Oh, it was fun, man.
Alrighty, guys, that's all we have for this week's show. So until we meet again next week, this is your host, Kevin Butt, wishing you huge success. Take care now.
See you, everyone.